and then we'll share some.
Oh, he is on the ballot.
Ah, okay. Okay, let's do some sharing now. Especially on Facebook. Things seem to be a little slow tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're finding that when you share.
Mm. Well, there's Dolores.
Yeah, hi, Dolores.
There's 3 now.
And then we'll share.
Do you see anyone on the Facebook side?
Yeah, Kay's here. Also, Dolores is on the Facebook side, Kay, as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm removing the promo now and we're in the picture. So there we are. Hello, Dolores. Both on Facebook and on YouTube. And Shane says, hi, Dolores. Saw you on 2 of my streams today.
Yeah. Yeah, we did 2 streams today. We did last Friday's show today because we didn't have it last Friday. And then we had the interview with Johnny Mayorga.
Yeah, that was a pretty good interview, wasn't it, Dolores? I liked that interview. I sort of noticed it. Okay, tonight we're going to start off with an announcement. Specifically, I am now part of the KRTD Media Network. We have decided to join forces a little more formally than we had been, Shane and I. And so now you see in the promo, you see the logo, the KRTD Media logo at the bottom, okay, of the promo, which is still up. There's also going to be a change to the banner that's on the YouTube page, okay, on my YouTube page. We are working on that now, but we didn't have a chance to finish it today. But it'll be in place probably for tomorrow. So that will be real good. Things will not change Oh, thanks, Carmen. It's good to see you here. Things are not going to change with respect to. I'll still appear on my page and be live streaming there. I'll still appear on my YouTube page. I'll be live streaming there. And I'll be live streaming to the KRTD media page as well. And KRTD may also be streaming me to other pages as well. They have a sophisticated capability to stream to multiple places, which I do not. So, Go Start says, "Go Joe," and Go Start says, "Shared." And we also have a bunch of other folks who are with us tonight who have yet to announce themselves, but we know they are here because we can see evidence of them in the interface. There's Lana. Hi, Lana. Nice to see you.
There's Carmen.
Yeah, Carmen Muniz is here also. And there are a number of others here too, because we're just showing 12 people. So, okay, let's get started then with the actual major part of the show. So here we are. We're going to start off by talking about some interesting changes which have occurred in the landscape, okay, the political landscape. And we're going to use those changes as a springboard to talk about all kinds of things. Shane and I have pretty freewheeling conversations, which usually are not on live stream, but this one is going to be on live stream. Ghostart says, "Mama Bear is the name of God on the lips and the hearts of shit lips." From the Crow section, Old Crow, hashtag fight on all fronts. I'm glad you used the hashtag fight on all fronts, but I am closely allied with the fight on all fronts people. In fact, the FOAF hashtag is the one that I actually started. So at FOAF, they are not shit lips. I can tell you that.
Oh, hello. Oh, that was chaos. Wonderful.
Okay, Lana says, "I missed the announcement." Okay, the announcement is that Go Start has given the announcement that I've joined the KRTD Media Network.
Mm-hmm.
A media network, as distinct from KRTD Media per se. In other words, they're a little different things. And there's Chaos. Hi, Chaos. You've come to entertain us tonight, I see. What an honor.
Oh, I'm so honored that you came today.
I'm the most powerful singer in the room. I'll bet you are, Chaos. Anyway, on to the business of the day. I'm going to bring up big news in New York. Of course, the big news, I'm sure you all know about the big news, but you may not know about the particular piece that we're going to share right now, entitled "The Left Gets the Last Laugh Against Cuomo." I don't know whether it's really the last laugh or not. This was by Ross Barkan on August 10th, so it's a little bit old now, but I've been thinking I ought to show you this article because I thought it had a lot of some interesting points. And it's by Ross Barkan, and "The Left Gets the Laugh Without Cuomo. New York's progressives will be liberated." And there's Julia Salazar looking every inch like the liberated progressive outside of Cuomo's Midtown office last week. That photo was by John Lemparski. and the sign says resign or impeach. And of course, as you know, he did resign as of August the 15th. So he is gone, and Kathy Hochul, his lieutenant governor, is now the governor. And Mr. Barkan, a little jubilantly, says single-payer health care and a public takeover of utility companies, also money pumped into the public university system and public housing stock, harvested from higher taxes on the wealthy, an end to qualified immunity for police officers. All of this is now at least possible without Andrew Cuomo around much longer to frustrate the left. And Cuomo hated the left, swatting away into 2 left-wing primary challenges over his time as governor. He hated the Working Families Party, the liberal third party. Okay, now to me, they're shit lips. But anyway, I'll say the liberal third party, which first flirted with not supporting him in 2014, and he hated everyone who associated with it. He tried to kneecap them many times, including the creation of a sham party with a similar name, the Women's Equality Party, to deny it the ballot altogether. Never fully worked. The WP persists to this day, WFP, but it did drive many labor unions away from the activist left. If the choice was between progressive values and Cuomo, the pragmatic unions would always go with the governor. The sellout unions, you mean? Because that's what they are, sellout unions. During his 11 years in power, he muscled the unions, wealthy donors, and lawmakers to block whatever the progressive bloc in Albany tried to achieve. He was able to do that most of the time, thanks to the alliance between Republicans in the state Senate, who shared power with the Independent Democratic Conference, a dissident group of conservative Democrats. I think that group was created by Cuomo, so he could actually do the Republicans' bidding in the Senate. Anyway, this arrangement came into being because Cuomo, a master triangulator, there it is, triangulation, Bill Clinton himself, did not want to support progressive legislation hiking the minimum wage, raising taxes, or strengthening tenant protections. As recently as 2016, otherwise left-leaning unions such as 1199 SEIU, eager to appease the powerful governor, contributed to Republicans and whipped vote against the Democrats. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? That arrangement only ended when progressives primaried all of the IDC members in 2018, defeating 6 out of 8. Yes, the progressives cleaned their clocks that time.
Mm-hmm.
Since the IDC was vanquished, many young progressives have flooded the Senate, and 2, Julia Salazar and Jabari Brisport, are members of the Democratic Socialists of America. The deputy leader of the Senate, whose name is Michael Gianaris, represents an overlapping district with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and has become a close ally of the famous representative. City progressives control a dominant bloc in the upper chamber now. They're part of the reason, ultimately, Cuomo had to resign. If the assembly impeached him, the votes would come in en masse to convict and remove him from office. The much bigger assembly has gone left too. Older moderates are still able to tamp down the progressives and socialists to some extent. There are at least 4 DSA members in the chamber, but the younger lawmakers were able to force the cautious Speaker, Carl Heastie, to take impeaching Cuomo seriously. Okay. There are Democratic majorities in both the Senate and the House in New York, right now. So there's a piece here on Kathy Hochul that they'll have far more leverage over her. And she's already been pulled over to the left, migrating from the vanishing conservative wing of the Democratic Party. She was once fiercely opposed, like Kirsten Gillibrand, to handing out driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants, but not anymore. She's from the Buffalo area, far from New York City power base, geographically and politically, but Buffalo is poised to elect the socialist mayor in November. That is, but she won the primary. Like Chuck Schumer in Washington, she will probably be much more sensitive to the shifting ground than Cuomo ever was. So the contention here, of course, is that the state is moving left. Whatever the progressives decide to prioritize next, they will act knowing one enormous impediment is gone for good. Hochul may be a counterweight, but she will not have the clout or the resentment of a former running mate. There will be no more government by vendetta. The Andrew Cuomo era has truly ended. So, what did you think about that, Shane?
So at 11:59 last night, it was the happiest minute of my life.
And why so, Shane?
Because I've been living under the tyranny of Governor Andrew Cuomo for the last forever, pretty much. So it's very happy to get rid of him. And I definitely, on that article, there's definitely some left forces in New York State, and I definitely agree with you. The Working Families Party are a bunch of shitlibs. They toyed with the idea of not supporting Cuomo. Why didn't they just support somebody else? What's stopping you? Nothing. You could give your ballot line to the Greens. You could give your ballot line to an independent.
They could have.
They could have given their ballot line to what's her name, the one who lost to Cuomo. They could have offered it
to Cynthia Nixon.
They could have offered it to her.
They could have offered it to Cynthia Nixon. They could have offered it to
Howie Hawkins at the time, I think.
Not just to Howie Hawkins, but the lady who ran against Andrew Cuomo before, Zephyr Teachout.
Yes, there's a number of people they could have offered.
She could have offered it to Zephyr Teachout. Zephyr Teachout would have made a wonderful governor. She would have made a wonderful attorney general. She's a wonderful lady. Can't you tell? Her name is Zephyr Teachout. She's got to be a wonderful lady.
Absolutely. They had many choices. They could have given it to her. His current opponent, his previous opponent, they could have given it to the Greens. They could have found their own progressive and ran them. They didn't even have to pick somebody from another party. They're a party who doesn't run their own candidates. What is that?
Yes. Also, didn't they support Joe Crowley against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? I think
Yes,
they did. I think they did. Anyway, they're really incredible. I have no idea why they do what they do. Maybe they'll be going left, maybe they won't. But there's been a lot of talk since the resignation of Cuomo that among the first orders of business for the progressives in New York State will be passage of the New York Health Act, which is the single-payer bill for New York State that's been languishing in the legislature there for some time. Now, that bill is supposed to have a new lease on life and opens up the possibility that New York may be the first of the states to actually go single-payer. Now, we'll have to see if that actually happens, but it's a possibility now, where it never was before, because Cuomo was a strong block against that, and because he tyrannized over the whole state. So we got to look at that particular political change now as a possibility.
Well, here's the thing about Cuomo. He terrorizes the state legislature. Representative Ron Kim, for example, or Senator Ron Kim, I forget if he was a rep or if he was a senator. He's somewhat progressive in the New York area of politics. He spoke up against Cuomo with the nursing homes. Cuomo called him in the middle of the night and started yelling at him.
Yes, I heard that. I heard that he did, and I heard he wasn't the only person that he yelled at over the phone in the middle of the night. That he seemed to do a lot of that.
He
Um,
also
okay. Also, Shane, if you would lift your posture a little bit so your
absolutely
chin is not cut off, that would be very good.
sure. So the other thing about Cuomo is he has his creatures the same way Pelosi has her creatures, like Steny Hoyer and like Jim Clyburn. Cuomo has creatures all across the state and all across the city. He, if anybody, for example, the MTA chairman prior to the one now opposed him and said, "I don't think it's a good idea to spend all of our money painting the buses." He bothered him until he left. He had put a puppet in there. He has puppets in multiple areas. It's very possible Kathy Hochul was one of his puppets. But now the puppet master is gone, and the strings have been cut.
Yes, and also, doesn't Cuomo face some threats in New York from Tisha James?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there a possibility she might try to pursue him?
There's that. His puppets are free. I wonder what they'll do without their leader.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And very, very interesting. But to get back to the main point, it's a change
It
that
is.
is in favor of a state level single payer system inside, okay, of New York State, one of the more populous states of the union still. But now, for a minute, we move out to California. You all know that what is going on out in California is that there's a recall going on against Bobo Newsom. Yeah, it's my favorite name for him, Bobo Newsom. Anyway, Bobo didn't have the sense to push through the Medicare for All bill he ran on in California. He's been blocking it. I shouldn't say Medicare for All bill. It was a single payer bill, CalCare. But he's been blocking it the same way Cuomo was blocking the New York Health Care Act. So there's now a possibility that Cuomo is going to be replaced. Now, on the one hand, this is dangerous because there's a very good possibility that a Republican is going to replace him. The way things work in California, there are two questions people vote on that make up the recall election. The first question is, do you want to retain the governor? People get to say yes or no. Okay, a yes vote is in favor of the recall. Okay, a no vote, okay, isn't in favor of the recall. Polls are showing that things are split there pretty much 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
That it's a very, very close vote at this point. And Cuomo, note, has to get 50% or more of the votes. If he falls below 50%, he is recalled. Then the second question comes into play. Okay,
Cuomo, you mean Newsom, right?
Huh?
I think you said, did you say Newsom?
I meant to say Newsom. I think I said Cuomo.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay, but I meant to say Newsom. Yes. So he would be gone if he gets less than 50% on the first vote.
Yes.
The answer to the first question. Okay, and it's about 50-50 now, so there's a good chance he could be removed. Then the second question comes into play. The
Yes.
second question comes into play. And the second question is, who do you want to replace him? And there's a list of people they can select from. And by law, the list of people doesn't include Bobo Newsom. In other words, if he's recalled, he's recalled. He can run again for election at the time of the next election, but for now, he's recalled. He's not among the list of candidates. there's something like 22 candidates or 23 candidates there. Okay. And the Democrats, actually Newsom, who tyrannized over his state in much the same way Cuomo tyrannized over New York, maybe not quite as badly, but seriously as well, he persuaded the Democrats of the state not to field a serious candidate. So there's something like 6 Democrats out of the 22 who are running, and all the Democrats are schlubs, to use a New York expression, an old-time New York expression.
Yep.
So the rest of the candidates, okay, are pretty much from the Republican Party. There are 2 grain candidates, and there are a couple of independents and something like that. But the majority of the other candidates are Republicans. Now, these people are going to split the whole vote, on the recall, and the likelihood is that one of the Republicans will have enough support. The polls are showing, for example, that Larry Elder, who's basically a podcaster right now, a Trump supporter, and a very, very conservative guy who's against things like Social Security and stuff like that, and certainly against the Medicare for All bill in California, or I should say a single-payer bill, okay, in California, that he has the most support of all the Republicans running right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a possibility that he could become governor of California with only 18 to 20% of the vote, or even 25% of the vote, or something like that.
Well,
but
you mean a plurality rather than a majority in this race.
all you need is a plurality, and it can be considerably less than 50%. So the paradox is the governor can be thrown out if the governor gets only 49%, but the replacement of the governor can be elected with some relatively small percentage of votes. Like it's been calculated that even if Elder gets 18% of the vote, it's got a pretty good chance to win. So the question is, what can be done about that? Well, it turns out there's a pretty good candidate. Certainly on paper, he's a pretty good candidate. I don't know if he's really a pretty good candidate. He makes a nice physical appearance. And his name is Dan Kapelowitz. And here is his website, which we should be sharing right now. Let me see if I got it shared.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's up there, but let me put us in the picture too. Okay. So, and let me get this over here where it's close to where I have to go back and forth. So just a little bit on background for Dan. He's an attorney. He's big on ranked choice voting, first of all. Okay. He's a former Bernie supporter, former NPP, and he's a Green Party member. He's running as a Green.
Did you say what is a former what?
A former NPP member. I'm not sure what the NPP is. I presume it's a California party.
Well, there is the National Progressive Party, but they don't have that much support yet.
Okay, but he is a Green Party member now, and he's running as a Green here.
Okay.
And he says he has the independence to improve California's politics. I have the experience and qualifications to protect California from the Trumpublicans who want to change it for the worse. You're seeing his picture there. He's a fairly good-looking man.
Lana Dell in the chat says no party preference.
Oh, no party preference. Okay, so he was a former no party preference, but he is now running as a Green. And he says, make no mistake, Gavin Newsom could lose this recall. In a bizarre attempt to protect himself, he apparently coerced all arguably qualified Democrats not to take part in the race for who to replace him. He says, I oppose the recall, partly due to Newsom making it so likely that a right-wing Republican will win if he loses. I'm also running because I believe I'm the only candidate of the broad progressive left who can win and govern effectively. He asks, never voted Green before? Well, this isn't a normal election. This, by the progressive left, needs to get behind someone to beat the Trumpublicans. With a long time, he's a long time activist in the animal and civil rights area. He's a lawyer, as I said before. And he says, with somebody like that, we can beat the Trumpers at the polls. I'm asking that you support me as that candidate. I need your activist support and votes from you and your friends to make sure that if Governor Newsom loses the recall, we won't elect a Trump Republican. To me, that makes sense. Now, today, Rosa DeMauro, the former head of the nurses union, was tweeting, vote no on recall and leave question 2 blank. I replied to her, I said, I'm sorry, I think this is nuts. If you leave it blank, then you simply open the way to Larry Elder. Okay, but I don't know what she was thinking. She's probably going along with what Newsom wants to see, because that was his strategy, not wanting anybody to vote for any of the alternatives, because he's afraid that would, if one of the alternatives gets popular, he's afraid that would pull him to a position that's less than 50% on question 1. So, but it seems to me, from the standpoint of the people, it's far more risky to vote no on 2, okay, and open the way for a Trumpist, okay, in California. But anyway, let's talk some about what our friend here, Dan Kapilovitz, is for. He's for ranked choice voting. He's for proportional representation. And he's for electoral reform for California. That's what's in his campaign platform. He's got some links to it for people to read on. He earned his law degree from the UCLA School of Law. He now teaches criminal procedure, and evidence at the People's College of Law. He's a certified criminal law specialist, certified by the California Board of Legal Specialization. As I said, he went to the UCLA School of Law. He graduated the top 3% of his class. He was president of the Animal Rights the Law Society and a member of the Law Review, at UCLA. He volunteered for the Innocence Project, defending death row prisoners with claims of who are making claims that they are innocent, and the Prisoner Reentry Project. He worked on special circumstances, murder cases, and other criminal matters for the Los Angeles County Public Defender as part of UCLA's Capital Punishment Clinic. He externed while he was in law school at the Working People's Law Center, working on criminal law cases. He helped obtain a new trial for a client, but due to juror misconduct, served as a law clerk for Los Angeles City Attorney's Animal Protection Unit. He worked there in animal abuse and neglect cases. After graduating law school, he was an associate attorney at a large civil law firm where he was a lead attorney on a successful asylum case, working on a successful pro bono prisoner civil rights case. And he litigated employment, intellectual property, entertainment, and other matters. Seems to me he's at least as qualified as Kamala Harris was to become the senator from California.
Oh yeah.
People then clerked for a federal judge for the United States District Court of the Central District of California. There he gained invaluable knowledge of behind-the-scenes workings of a judge's chamber. During his clerkship, he completed the Los Angeles County Bar Association's trial advocacy program, which allowed him to try criminal cases for the Los Angeles city attorney.
I want to really quickly. I'm looking at the primary results from the 2020 election in California right now.
Good.
So Sanders got over 2 million votes. Warren got over 762,000 votes. There was a 1.6 million who voted for Biden. But it seems to me that between the voters who voted for Sanders and Warren, there's more progressive voters, and it seems like it's than there are conservative voters in California. The problem is they don't always vote that way.
And also the problem is they're not necessarily going to go to the polls.
That's the other problem.
Because a lot of them, okay, are PO'd, okay, at Newsom. They're upset with his handling of the pandemic, and they're upset with his handling of the fires. They're angry at him for these things. That's why there's a good chance that he will be recalled. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, Dan Kaplovitz is for criminal justice reform and also COVID-19 and public health. Says, I truly understand why many people distrust the government, that it's largely due to our government's lack of openness, independence from special interests, and accountability. I value the principles of privacy and bodily autonomy spelled out in Roe v. Wade and Casey, but these rights are not absolute. And unlike an IUD, a refusal to either receive a vaccination or engage in masking and social distancing endangers many people around us, including rural residents, tweens, the people whose immune systems are compromised, and those without housing. We need to encourage those who have the trust of voters who don't want to be vaccinated to tell them about the actual nature of COVID, that the SARS-2 virus causes it, that the physically fit and pure of heart are not immune, that the vaccines have now been tested and in use for a long enough time. So he's very pro-vaccine, basically. Very strong on fire prevention. He would introduce a very good program for that. When it comes to the Green New Deal, he doesn't state a platform of his own. He links you to Howie Hawkins' eco-socialist Green New Deal platform, basically saying that he's for that. He's for social, environmental, and economic justice. Healthcare and housing is human rights. He supports single payer in California. He says, as governor, I, Dan, would sign such a bill. When there is a Republican governor, the Democrats in the legislature pass single payer. But when there is a Democratic governor, the Democrats in the legislature don't. Why not? Because the governor opposes it. That's, I'm sure, a big reason why not. They've got other reasons, but that's a big reason too. In this case, of course, he would push them to pass a single payer. If progressives could get him in, nobody knows him. I mean, right now, there's no boomlet even for this guy. But he's obviously preferable to any Republican. He looks like he's preferable to any of the other Democrats running from a progressive point of view. It seems to me progressives have to go out there and find out about him. Now, I was a little shocked when Johnny Mayorga, who was on your show tonight, Shane, said that he had to look up Dan Kaplovitz. What's he been doing for the last 3 weeks? How could they neglect to look up this guy and see what he has to offer? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
That's
People
true.
who live in California, who are progressives in California, should be at least trying to give this guy a chance. Because the way it is in this election, there's nobody visible for progressives in California, all those Sanders votes to vote for. It seems to me all the Sanders votes should be running to Dan Kaplovitz in this particular situation. I mean, first of all, if you don't like him, it would be very easy to get rid of him. I think in about a year, the regular election is coming down again, and Newsom will be standing for that. But meanwhile, it would be important, if Newsom loses, for someone to be elected who's not going to appoint a Republican to the Senate.
Here's the thing: everybody is afraid to vote for him because they're afraid to split the vote. Then you get a Republican governor.
No. If you vote no on the recall, and then you also vote on question 2 for Kaplovitz, then that doesn't create an advantage for the Republicans.
We know that, but
in other words, that's the progressive choice.
And yeah, we know that, but the average voter might be worried they were going to split the vote.
Well, we should be carrying on a campaign to try to show the progressive voter, and there are a lot of Democrats who are like that this guy Kaplovitz is the closest thing to Bernie in this recall election.
That's true, and here's the other thing: you don't have one progressive and one so-called progressive with Warren running in this race. You have one with Dan Kaplovitz, so he could get 2.7 million votes if he got all their votes.
If they voted, if they went forward and they voted.
Then you got the 5,000 Tulsi votes, the 7,000 Williamson votes. Those could go to him if they voted.
Those could go to him if they voted. I have a feeling there's going to be a very low number of votes in this race because so many people, are angry that they might just stay home, and that benefits the Republicans too. If the totals are low, but you have Trump supporters coming out, you could very well end up with a Trumpist as the governor of California, and with the next senator from California being a Trumpist as well, and with the Democrats therefore losing control of the Senate, and the Senate going back to Mitch McConnell. It seems to me that's enough reason to get excited about this and try to stop this from happening.
That's true.
If you think the safest way to stop it from happening is to vote for Newsom, that's fine. Go ahead and vote for Newsom on question 1. But at least have a fail-safe on question 2. Dan Kaplovitz is that particular fail-safe.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that, that would make sense. Here's the other thing. The so-called, and I talked about this with Johnny Mayorga. He says the DSA and the lefty Democrats don't have anybody. Here's an idea. What if they endorsed Dan Capoletti because he's the only one actually running who's closest to their values? That would be a smart move.
That's what I think. I think they should go out and endorse him instead of endorsing any of the Democrats.
But you see, that would be rude. And that would be, they wouldn't like that.
Okay, do you want the reconciliation bill to get passed I mean, I know they're going to quickly push this one through.
Yeah.
But what about the reconciliation bill after that? They got another reconciliation bill that's going to come up in the fall.
Yes.
If the Senate turns to Mitch McConnell, no reconciliation bill comes through. And you know how dangerous that is?
Sure, you get the Republican reconciliation.
But everybody is assuming, or has been assuming, in the early part of the summer that the pandemic was mostly over.
Mm-hmm.
We now know the pandemic is not over. Now, they have taken money, the Democrats have taken money from the CARES Act. In other words, pandemic money, and they're applying it to the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill is a $1.2 trillion bill, but there's only $550 billion in new money. The rest of that bill, more than $600 billion, is coming out of COVID money from the CARES Act. If the Delta variant turns out to be as serious as it appears to be right now, what could easily happen is they're going to have to pass another reconciliation bill in the fall with lots and lots of COVID money in it, because people are going to have to stay home again, because things are going to be shut down again.
That's true. Now, my only issue with the reconciliation bill is they're not doing that. Is that AOC went back on her word when she said we're going to make them do the partisan bill, and before we do the nonpartisan bill, or something. She said, partisan bill. If you don't give me the partisan bill, you can't have the nonpartisan bill. And she went back and she didn't, and she voted on the nonpartisan bill before that she got them to agree to vote on the partisan bill.
No, I don't think that happened. I think Nancy Pelosi has taken the strong position that, and is still holding to that position, that she's not passing the nonpartisan bill out of the House until the reconciliation bill, the partisan bill, gets accepted by the Senate.
That's true. Now, sorry, I didn't mean AOC. I mean the Senate hasn't. Sorry, I didn't mean AOC. I meant the Senate has not accepted the partisan bill. Sorry, I'm just so used to yelling at AOC by now.
Right, and so Pelosi and the CPC are holding the nonpartisan bill hostage.
Wow,
and that's a good thing for them to do.
Oh my God, they're forcing a vote.
Oh my God, they're forcing the vote at last.
And Pelosi is helping them.
And Pelosi is helping them to force the vote. Yes.
Madness.
Yes, because Pelosi apparently wants a legacy, and she sees this bill as her legacy.
I thought she saw Obamacare as her legacy.
Well, I think she's changed her mind, okay, about that, because Obamacare has proven to be such a terrible flop. I think she knows that by now.
That's true. Well, remember, she's a master legislator. She somehow got that passed. Fully.
Look, she's good at arithmetic. She can count the votes. To my mind, that doesn't make her a master legislator.
No.
I've never thought she was a master legislator. I think that was always puff, from the mainstream media. Yeah, to the shit lib, she looks like a master legislator. But not so much to the Green New Deal types. She doesn't look so great from that point of view.
So now they need to pass this reconciliation bill. I'm not sure if the Senate's going to accept it. They might, but you got to force them to.
Right, but a lot of centrist people up in the Senate worked extremely hard to get the nonpartisan bill agreed to. I don't actually accept, the terminology nonpartisan and partisan because the partisan bill is for the American people, both the Republicans and the Democrats and the independents.
I think they mean
partisan. That's the bill. That's for everybody. So
Right.
it's a nonpartisan bill. The supposedly nonpartisan bill is for the corporates. A lot of giveaways to the corporates in that bill. Probably half the bill is giveaways. Probably
Honestly,
half the bill is lemon socialism.
I'd be fine if we just passed the first bill, the one that they're trying to get passed now, and we didn't pass Bill 2.
The first bill, you mean the reconciliation bill?
The one that they're trying to force them to accept in the Senate.
Right, right. But that's the reconciliation bill.
Right. I wouldn't care if we didn't pass Bill 2 because it's all the corporate giveaways in that bill.
Right, but what I'd say is that we could trim the corporate giveaways out of that bill, and we could turn the corporate giveaways into government spending. Then that bill would be fine.
Then that bill would be fine. But Joe Manchin may not like it, and Kirsten Sinema may not like it.
Absolutely, they would not like it. But they're going to have to pass the reconciliation bill first, or they won't get the bill that they like.
And here's the other thing. If Nancy Pelosi wants to force a vote, she's going to force the vote. Nobody realizes. It's not that she's a master legislator. It's not any of that. It's that there's a fear of her in Congress. She has a lot of power and a lot of money.
And the reason why she has a lot of power is she's a fantastic fundraiser from the corporate types. And especially the centrist Democrats rely on those funds.
Here's the question. Would Joe Manchin fight Nancy Pelosi? He has no problem fighting AOC. But if he has to fight Pelosi, that may cut into his donations.
Well, the point is, he and Kirsten Sinema have to persuade the 9 corporate Democrats who are holding out in the House that they can get elected without having Nancy Pelosi's money.
I don't think they can do that.
I don't think they can get elected without her money.
Absolutely. You saw Nancy Pelosi's big dinner party over the weekend. I think last weekend or last week, right? With all the corporates.
Yep. And she, by the way, she had some of those 9 congressmen there at that meeting. Carolyn Bordeaux from Georgia was at that meeting. Okay, and another one of those congressmen, okay, was at that meeting as well. So, on the one hand, they're resisting Pelosi in terms of what she wants to do, but on the other, they're helping her to raise funds that she will control and will not give to them if they don't vote along with her on this bill.
Absolutely.
So you pretty well know that those 2 out of the 9 are going to fold.
Oh, absolutely.
And according to Ryan's grim count of things, he thinks that 7 of those 9 are going to cave and that only 2 will be left in the end.
That sounds about right. Did you see the picture from the meeting? It looked like she was reporting to her bosses.
Well, of course, those who pay the piper call the tune.
Absolutely. And that was a wonderful meeting where everybody, all the rich people got to go maskless and wear summer clothes. And all the servants had to wear 3-piece suits and masks.
It was strictly Nancy Pelosi symbolism.
Yes.
Absolutely worst kind of limousine liberal symbolism.
Mm-hmm. Like, want to see my freezer?
Yeah, want to see my freezer? Yeah.
I got this expensive ice cream. And she's like, you can get this in the mail, too. It's only $9.99 each, and you can get them in the mail. And okay.
Okay, so we move on now.
Yes.
We're going to move on. For this next one.
Before we move on, Joe, have you ordered your $300 freezer yet? $3 million freezer?
No, I haven't even ordered my $20,000 freezer yet, Shane.
Oh, that's too bad.
I specialize in no freezers at all. I just use the refrigerator. I just use the freezer in my refrigerator, which came with the apartment.
Mm, that's good.
So, okay, the next subject is: will we ever honor Americans who were right on Afghanistan? This is a piece written by actually Medea Benjamin from Code Pink and her frequent co-author, whose name is Nicholas J.S. Davies, who may be Latin American because his first name is actually Nicolas. That's a Latin American spelling of that. So I guess. So what this article is it's really just making a very elementary point. Why don't we ever honor people who are right about the disasters that we get into? They say America's corporate media are ringing with recriminations over the humiliating U.S. military defeat in Afghanistan. But very little of the criticism goes to the root of the problem, which was the original decision to militarily invade and occupy Afghanistan in the first place. And then, of course, she rehearses the facts of 2001, or they rehearse the facts, of 2001. And they point out that Rumsfeld held a meeting in an intact part of the Pentagon, and Undersecretary Cambone's notes from that meeting spell out how quickly and blindly U.S. officials prepared to plunge our nation into graveyards of empire in Afghanistan, Iraq, and beyond. Cambone wrote that Rumsfeld wanted, quote, best info fast, judge whether good enough hit at the Saddam Hussein. At the same time, not only by Osama bin Laden, go massive, sweep it all up, things related and not. Things related and not. He's basically saying, why don't we commit some war crimes? Things related and not. If they're not related, it's war crimes. So within hours of these horrific crimes in the United States, the central question senior U.S. officials were asking was how to investigate them and hold the perpetrators accountable, not how to investigate them and hold the perpetrators accountable, but how to use this Pearl Harbor moment, quote unquote, to justify wars, regime changes, and militarism on a global scale. Following Rahm Emanuel's famous dictum, never let a crisis go to waste. 3 days later, Congress passed a bill authorizing the president to use military force. As you all know, the authorization for the use of military force has been cited to justify 37 distinct military operations in 14 different countries and at sea. The vast majority of the people killed, maimed, or displaced in these operations had nothing to do with the crimes of September 11th. Successive administrations have repeatedly ignored the actual wording of the authorization, which only authorized the use of force against those involved in some way in the 9/11 attacks. The only member of Congress who had the wisdom and courage to vote against the 2001 AUMF was Barbara Lee of Oakland. We compared it to the 1964 Gulf of Tonkin resolution and warned her colleagues that it would inevitably be used in the same expansive and illegitimate way. The final words of her floor speech echo presciently through the 20-year-long spiral of violence, chaos, and war crimes it unleashed. By the way, folks, the war crimes she's talking about, those are our war crimes. Quote, as we act.
Those are war crimes. We're just making sure everything in every other country is okay and to our liking.
Yes. And the quote from her, quote, as we act, let us not become the evil we deplore, unquote, which of course is exactly what happened. So let's sort of skip ahead. This is a lengthy article. It's worth going through completely, of course, but we don't have time for that here. So, the authors say our analysis was correct and our predictions were prescient. We humbly submit that the media and politicians should start listening to the voices of peace and sanity instead of to lying, delusional warmongers. What leads to catastrophes like the U.S. war in Afghanistan is not the absence of convincing anti-war voices, but that our political and media systems routinely marginalize and ignore voices like those of Barbara Lee, Ben Ferencz, and ourselves. She had quoted this fellow Ben Ferencz and themselves as of 2001. That is not because we are wrong, okay, and the belligerent voices they listen to are right. They marginalize us precisely because we are right and they are wrong, and because serious, rational debates over war, peace, and military spending would jeopardize some of the most powerful and corrupt vested interests that dominate and control U.S. politics on a bipartisan basis. So that's really the major point of the article. Goes over a number of other places where we intervened, of course, like in Vietnam, Cold Wars against China, okay, and Russia. Our actions in our traditional backyards in Canada, okay, and Latin America. Notes that dropping over 80,000 bombs and missiles on the people of Afghanistan for 20 years has failed to change the way they live, apart from killing hundreds of thousands of them and destroying their homes. We must instead, as Rumsfeld said, change the way we live. We should start by finally listening to Barbara Lee. First, we should pass her bill to repeal the two post the 9/11 AUMFs that launched our 20-year fiasco in Afghanistan and other wars in Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. And we should pass a bill to redirect $350 billion a year from the U.S. military budget to, quote, increase our diplomatic capacity and for domestic programs that will keep our nation and our people safer, unquote.
That sounds like a wonderful bill. I don't know if she's going to fight for it, though.
I don't know if she's going to fight for it either, but if she doesn't fight for it, it will be because of her calculation that she will have almost no support in the Congress for that bill.
Well, here's the thing. Let's do some. But I'm sure the squad would, in theory, would support it. People like Katie Porter, Debbie Dingell, Rosa Dolores.
Right, but the most important thing the squad could have done to support her bill was to have voted to replace Nancy Pelosi on January 3rd of this year.
That's true. Then they did not.
And they did not.
They wouldn't do anything.
Yes, they got almost nothing for what they did.
But they got pay-go.
Only pay-go taken out with respect to the House when it comes to Medicare for all bills and when it comes to Green New Deal bills. But not for everything, just for those two things. And, of course, that really doesn't matter because they can't get either of those things to the floor because they did not, in the process, extract a floor vote from the person who might have been the successor to Pelosi. They could have extracted floor votes, committee positions, and rules changes.
But, you know,
floor votes a lot easier to get. And they forego they just kind of ignored all that.
If you ask TYT, if you do that, then you're going to get Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker. And Pago is an amazing win. To quote Anna Kasparian, it isn't sexy, but it's an important win, you guys.
Okay, well, I'm the world's expert on that because I did the numbers, and I have graphics to show that there was no possibility for Kevin McCarthy to get in. There was only a possibility for the Squad and for other progressive Democrats to put a block on Nancy Pelosi and vote after vote after vote until she finally got tired and withdrew her candidacy for the Speaker. Then new candidates for Speaker would have had to have come forward, and you would have gotten some people favored by Pelosi, like Hakeem Jeffries,
but nobody
trying to save the leadership team. But they could have been blocked by the progressives just as well as Nancy Pelosi.
I don't think just the progressives would block Hakeem Jeffries. I think a lot of people would. He's not very well. Congress is like high school in a lot of ways.
Right.
They don't like him. They're not going anywhere.
Hakeem Jeffries ain't very popular.
Nope.
And that's a fact. But there are people more progressive than Nancy Pelosi who are pretty popular across the board. For example, in Debbie Dingell's case, she's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And do you know she's also a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is the right-wing caucus inside the Democratic Party. She has a foot in both of these caucuses. And she is well-liked by the people in both of the caucuses. Everybody thinks they can deal with her. She might have emerged as the new Speaker. She was one of a number of candidates. But Congressman, but Delora was another. Jan Schakowsky was another. Barbara Lee herself was another possibility. Well-liked, well-respected by many, many people.
Absolutely.
Karen Bass. Karen Bass was a possibility.
Barbara Lee was the original one who wanted to run against Pelosi, if I remember right.
She sort of kind of explored that, but in the end, she's good friends with Pelosi. And I think she did not run for that reason.
Therein lies the problem.
Yes, she is from the next district over from Nancy Pelosi. They've collaborated for years in Congress, on various things. So it was hard for Barbara Lee to run against her.
AOC had supported the idea, if I remember, in her first run.
She did. She favored Barbara Lee for the speakership. But she and the Squad never tried to force the vote to replace Nancy Pelosi. And that's why we still have her around to block our initiatives. Because as good as the reconciliation bill is, and it is a very good bill, it ain't no Medicare for all bill. And it ain't no Green New Deal bill.
No. Imagine if we had had a Speaker Dingell or a Speaker Lee in place of a Speaker Pelosi, what that bill may have actually looked like.
Yep. That bill might have been, well, it might have been the Sunrise Movement's $10 trillion bill. Or it might have been Bernie Sanders' $6 trillion bill that he was originally working on before he pre-compromised it down to $3.5 trillion. And still they're trying to take part of the $3.5 trillion away from him because he's always pre-compromising instead of fighting to the end.
He should fake them out. He should be like, I'm going for a $30 trillion bill. But I'm willing to go down to $14 trillion. and call that a pre-compromise. You should trick them like that.
Right, or alternatively, to have gone for Howie Hawkins's $42 trillion bill and compromised his way down to 20 trillion or something like that.
Oh yeah, that would be an amazing.
Okay, or the original $16.2 trillion that he had in his own platform for the Green New Deal.
Because he's going to compromise, but he may compromise down to 11 trillion from there, or 13 trillion.
Well, I'm suggesting he should have compromised from the 42 trillion down to the 16 trillion.
Like, you know what? You're right. What about 16 trillion? Well, that sounds okay.
Right, but to do all this, he would have had to have started to talk the way John Yarmouth has been talking lately. He would have to start talking the basics, okay, of MMT and start condemning the Republicans, saying about the Republicans, they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how SNL, back in the day, how they got some of their crazier skits on? They showed them something worse. And when they saw that, they're like, oh, that's better. So if Bernie had shown them the $42 trillion bill, and then he had showed them the $16 trillion bill, they would be like, you know, we like the $16 trillion bill.
Yeah, sometimes that's a good strategy to follow. I've never thought that Bernie bargains extremely well. The classic case was he wanted, in return for his support for the Affordable Care Act, they were very short of votes on the Affordable Care Act. They needed his vote on the Affordable Care Act. He told them he wanted community health care centers. He asked for $10 billion in community health care centers. Now, this is over 10 years. Yeah. It's $1 billion a year in community health care centers. Peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
What if he asked for $100 billion?
That was my immediate thought at the time in 2010. What's he selling himself so cheaply for? Ask for $100 billion, $10 billion a year. That would have helped set up Carolyn McClanahan's community health centers all over the country to completely take care of primary care.
Yeah.
That would have made a big dent in that particular problem and been very, very useful for people.
Imagine if Bernie Sanders called a press conference in 2010, right before they came to him for his vote, and he said, they're going to come to me for my vote, and you know what I'm going to ask for? I'm going to ask for $100 billion in community health care centers, and if they don't give it to me, they're not going to pass the bill.
Not only should he have done that, he should have been negotiating with every progressive senator in the Senate at that time.
At that time, that would have been Gillibrand and Warren and Markey and a couple others.
Jeff Merkley was there then.
So that's true, maybe 10 or 15 of them.
But also there were other people who were thought to be progressive at that time who were originally in favor of Medicare for all. For example, Jello J. Rockefeller was there at that time, and Robert Byrd was there at that time. Both were strong Medicare for all supporters. He should have gone to them and he should have said, we don't vote for this without getting $100 billion in community health care centers. I don't think Bernie did that.
Imagine if Bernie said, I think, was Warren in the Senate yet or no?
No, Warren was not there yet.
Okay, so Warren wasn't there yet. What about Markey?
He was in the House.
Okay.
He was not in the Senate. But by the way, he should have joined Dennis Kucinich in the House and refused to vote for that bill without the $100 billion in community health care centers.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the imagine if the progressive senators and the progressive Congress people held a press conference led by Bernie Sanders where they said, "We're asking for this. If they don't give it to us, we're not going to vote for that bill. And if they don't pass it and you don't get a new health care plan, that's their fault for not giving us what you want, what we
They
were asking."
could have forced the vote in 2010. They had enough people to force the vote, okay, in 2010. Nancy Pelosi wanted that Affordable Care Act very badly. She would have caved to them then in the House. If they could have gotten 15 votes together,
Between the Senate and the House?
no, just in the House.
Just in the House.
If they could have gotten 15 votes together in the House, there were 15 votes in the House. Alan Grayson was in the House. Kucinich was in the House.
But here's the House and the Senate would have to collaborate, because then you have the House and the Senate say, "You're not going to even get it through here. And even if you get it through here, we're not going to pass it up here."
Right?
You need
Absolutely.
to have that threat. Because Pelosi could try to maneuver and make deals with the Republicans or do something, but then you have to let her know, even if you make a deal with the 15 Republicans to get this through, somehow, out of thin air, we're not voting for it up here.
Yeah, what Obama was doing was he was doing deals with all the conservative Democrats. And he wasn't giving the progressive Democrats anything.
Because they didn't
What Max Baucus got, was free Medicare for all the minors in this one town. In this one town in his state, he got them free Medicare. He put in that section of the Social Security Act, 1881A, that allowed the president, by executive order, okay, to declare an emergency and to give people free Medicare. Baucus made that deal for his people. But Ben Nelson, who was the senator from Kansas at that time, okay, or Nebraska, okay, I forget which, made a similar deal for himself and his constituents. I don't say it was similar to the Baucus deal, but he made a deal for himself that he wanted in terms of something he wanted to get into that particular bill. Joe Lieberman made a deal. He had 58 senators. 8 of those senators were right-wing and didn't want to pass the thing.
Joe
And Obama made compromises with all those 8 senators, and the progressives, real dumb johns, didn't extract anything from Obama. Whatever he said was fine. Whatever he said goes.
Well, the $10 billion in healthcare in the communities they extracted somehow.
Yeah.
Which is great, but not really.
Okay, let's consider the final piece, the final bit of change.
We got some, yeah, definitely.
The final bit of change is Biden's 180-degree shift on trade policy. Now, of course, with all the excitement over Afghanistan, this is really going under the radar. But in the long run, well, first of all, Afghanistan is tremendously significant because the pullout is significant. It's long overdue, but it's very, very important to us to be out of there. Hopefully, it's the first step in the retreat from the empire. We need to end the empire. And the retreat from Afghanistan is the first step in that. But what we also need to do very desperately in terms of change is to change our trade policy. Well, guess what? It turns out that the trade representative for Trump, Robert Lighthizer, is a pretty good guy, and he rewrote NAFTA, key provisions of NAFTA. Okay, in the U.S., what's it called? The MC something or other bill. But anyway, the USMCA. is the successor agreement. It includes tough, enforceable labor rights provisions guaranteeing workers in the US, Mexico, and Canada the right to organize and join unions free from harassment. So it guarantees workers in the three countries the right to organize and join unions, right?
Although,
It's not the PRO Act, it's a treaty. It's more sacred than is the PRO Act in a certain way.
that's
So,
true, but we still stop them from unionizing anyway.
this was written into the bill, and there was an ingenious rapid response mechanism, which was the brainchild of Senator Sherry Brown, the Democrat of Ohio. He's the union guy, okay, in Ohio, always gets union support. He's a Democrat. Said if workers' rights at a plant in Mexico are denied, the U.S. can slap tariffs on the factory's exports, and U.S. Customs can block them from entering the U.S. Entirely. Now, there was a case called the Tridenex case, and here's how rapid response worked in that case. Laws in Mexico guarantee workers the right to join unions, but that right is effectively denied through the use of corrupt company unions known as protection unions, quote unquote. If a company has a protection union, that but nominally satisfies the Mexican law, and workers are out of luck. Until the USMCA changed the game. At Tridenex, the workers have been trying for 2 years to affiliate with one of Mexico's genuine unions, the Sindicato Nacional Independiente de... I'm sorry. I cannot read the Spanish here, but the abbreviation of it is SNIDUS, roughly the counterpart of SEIU. More than 600 workers were fired. The company used the excuse of a COVID downsizing to get rid of workers who were thought to favor the independent union. In May, the AFL-CIO, the SEIU, and Public Citizen filed a complaint under the USMCA's rapid response provision. And folks, by the way, this is really amazing. This is something that got through the government, which none of the donors wanted. This was somehow slipped through because Lighthizer was an honest guy. Anyway, the U.S. Trade Representative confirmed the validity of the complaint, threatened retaliation, and in less than 3 months, they and the company devised a settlement. Under the agreement, 154 workers will get a total of $600,000 in back pay, about $4,000 each, and the Mexican government commits to supervising an honest election. This was a less than ideal case since the COVID layoffs made it hard to demand the reinstatement of the terminated workers. But back pay was a lesser remedy. But Susana Prieto, the renowned labor lawyer in Mexico, who has been jailed for representing independent unions and workers, called the settlement only a first step. These settlements are also tricky because Mexican state governments along the U.S. border tend to be in bed with the fake unions. The national government of Mexico, led by progressive president AMLO, is responsible for Mexico living up to its USMCA commitments, but in practice it shares the jurisdiction with the states. There was another more clear-cut case. The Biden administration did not wait for a union complaint, but initiated action directly. Previously, complaints that alleged any violations of workers' rights had typically been filed by unions. That case, also filed in May, involved a General Motors factory in the town of Basileo that makes light trucks for export to the U.S. In the GM case, in which workers had managed, to get an election to vote on whether to affiliate with a real union, the incumbent fake union was caught literally stuffing ballot boxes. In that case, where U.S. Trade Representative investigators had a stronger hand, the remedy agreed to by GM and the Mexican government is a do-over election with international monitors from the International Labor Organization. And the new election must be held by August 20th, so it's been held then. GM must be scrupulously neutral. If the election is not deemed fair, the Basileo GM plant faces tariffs or customs involving denial of entry of its trucks. So this is something new, and one of the things that's new about it is that it not only happened in the final days of the Trump administration, but also these rules are now being enforced by the Biden administration. When was the last time the federal government did anything in favor of labor in the United States?
That's a good question.
I don't know. The Labor Department's top liaison with the USTR, the trade representative, is the Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs, Thea Lee. Now, Thea Lee was president of the Economic Policy Institute, which is a lefty think tank in D.C. and has been one for years. And for 20 years before that was a senior staffer at the AFL-CIO. Over at USTR, the head of that agency, Catherine Tai, is an enthusiast of the Rapid Response Program, as is Labor Secretary Marty Walsh. Tai's own chief of staff is Nora Todd. Previously as Sherrod Brown's chief economic and trade policy advisor, it was Todd who worked out the details of the rapid response mechanism. And the assistant trade representative for labor is Josh Kagan, who previously had senior jobs at the Labor Department's Office of Trade and Labor Affairs. So the author of this, who is Alexander Salmon, I believe. I don't think it's Dave Dade in this case. Oh no, wait. I think it's Robert Kuttner, the former editor of the American Prospect. Does it get any better? For those of us who care about the use of trade law and policy to advance rather than retard the rights of workers, the government is at last in friendly hands. Some of these international labor rights could even spill over domestically, where worker rights to choose unions are honored in the breach. How could it be done? Well, what happens if the Mexicans retaliated and filed a complaint against us for denying our workers' rights? Or what happens if Canada did that? It might be more likely than Canada would do that, than Mexico, but it's perfectly possible. Anyway, Kuttner says, note to my grumpy labor friends, this kind of thing is why some of us are genuinely enthusiastic about the Biden administration. Not because we are captured pushovers. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been following all this very closely and is mightily upset, having long been accustomed to USTR, the Trade Representative Agency, as a lapdog. I also want to mention the USTR for years and years has been a chief thrust of the neoliberal push to dominate our trade policy, which has gone so heavily against the workers in our country. The trade representatives, until very recently, have been instrumental in carrying out that purge against our workers. That's no longer happening in this administration. That's a big change. It's a significant straw in the wind. Okay, everybody should know about it and know what's happening and hope that this change is a permanent change. Okay, it's up to Biden. He's done a good thing here. Let's hope that he continues to do it. So, any further comments, questions, Shane?
Biden has surprised me in a couple of areas. I don't think he's a great president. I do think that it's good if we're going to be enforcing these labor laws. And I do think it's good that we're out of, I was going to say Iraq, I wish, Afghanistan. Good steps. He's still not good on every issue, but you have to, as Kyle Kalinske has recently noted, you have to be consistent. And when he does something good, you do absolutely have to give him the credit he deserves. But you also have to push back just as hard if he does something bad.
Right, and I absolutely agree, but I want to add his decision to withdraw from Afghanistan and stick with the withdrawal. I mean, that man was subject to tremendous pressure from the military-industrial complex not to withdraw from Afghanistan. And they have been aided by their allies in the mainstream media who've been having a tremendous hissy fit concerning our getting out, of Afghanistan. But Biden has not wavered from his purpose. He's withstood it all so far. He's insisted on the withdrawal. It must be somehow a key principle. Okay, it could be because his son contracted his final illness, probably as a result of being in Iraq. That may be the motivating factor. I don't know if that is the motivating factor. He was the person in the Obama administration who was not in favor of nation building in Iraq. He might have been in favor of going to Afghanistan. I think he was at first.
Yeah,
but he was in favor of it, I believe, for punishing Osama bin Laden, and punishing the Taliban. Once that was done, I think he was a voice.
And Al-Qaeda.
Right, and Al-Qaeda. Once that was done, I think he was a voice in trying to get out of that area. He was not a voice in favor, of nation building there. There was even one point where he was advocating for the partitioning of Iraq into Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish areas. So he was by far not the conventional guy inside of the Obama administration in terms of the foreign policy he wanted to see inside of the Middle East. And it was also true that the main figures in that administration scoffed at him and called him stupid for his opinions. And many people have speculated that now he is trying to show people that maybe he wasn't so stupid after all.
That's definitely true.
I think it's time to consider comments.
Yes.
Okay, would you like to stay for that, Shane?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So here we are. I'm going back to the beginning. Oh, not only is Chaos Ang here tonight, but also the fake Elizabeth Warren is here as well. Well, we can skip. I think we can skip their comments.
Comments.
Yeah. Ghost Start says at 9:15. There were 50,000 tactical vehicles, 20,000 Humvees. They control about 1,000 mine-resistant vehicles, and even about 150 armored personnel carriers, $83 billion of funds on weapons, vehicles, and airplanes. That's quite a haul for the Taliban. At least they got something for the 20 years of war. The Taliban also reportedly has access to biometrics data of Afghans that helped the U.S. forces during the war. And Lana says, every time I see and hear Cuomo, I hear the theme song from The Godfather and laugh out loud. Not Chris as much, but definitely the governor's father. I think one of them actually married John Gotti's daughter. I don't know about John Gotti's daughter, but okay, I really don't think that Mario was much involved. Okay, at least he never ran New York State the way his son has.
No, he'd be turning in his grave.
Yeah, I think he'd be turning in his grave too. And Lana says, I agree, Zephyr T would be fab.
What timestamp are you on? I'm trying to follow here.
I'm at 9:19 now.
Okay.
Okay. I've just moved to 9:20. Okay. Dolores says, the Tappan Zee Bridge, getting rid of the Cuomo name is on many New Yorkers' minds. Yeah, I want to turn it back to the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even have recognized what the Cuomo Bridge actually was.
You know, they even had a scandal where they didn't even do the screws right when they were rebuilding it, and then they had to redo it.
Gee. And Kay says Cuomo deserted his dog too.
Oh yeah, he left his dog in the governor's mansion.
Oh Jesus! So who's supposed to take care of his dog? Kathy Hochul?
He's got to go back for his dog now. I can't. He's so incompetent. He forgot his own dog.
He left in such a hurry. Hashtag Cuomo sexual predator. Hashtag CSP. Ghostart says that. And Lana says, Bobo, oh my God, laugh out loud. Lana says, what prompted the recall? What prompted the recall was that a lot of Republican donors wanted to try to grab the governorship, and they recognized that that Bobo was getting unpopular because of his handling of the pandemic and the fires.
And according to Johnny Mayorga, he was dining when he told everybody to stay home. He was going to the restaurants and dining maskless. Great governor.
Yes, that was something that really pissed off people. The incident of the French Laundry.
Yeah.
That was the French Laundry is actually a restaurant, not a laundry.
Yeah, well, those California politicians think they're above it. You know, Pelosi had to get her hair cut.
Yeah.
He had to go get his meal.
Ghostart says Bobo, a liberal, highly educated person who combines a bourgeois, affluent, and materialistic lifestyle with nonconformist values and attitudes. Gee, why nonconformist values and attitudes? Carmen says, schlubs. I love it. Chaos says, Lana, I love you. And Lana says, schlub, is this another Yiddish word I need to look up? Yes, look it up. It may indeed be a Yiddish word. I don't know if it is, but it's a New York word. I don't really know if it's a Yiddish word, but it does sound Yiddish. And Lana says, I love you too, Chaos. Chaos says, ha, 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 ha. Carmen says, okay, go start. I thought it was salt comparing Newsom to Michael Jackson's chimp. Chaos says, Lana, I will have you.
Okay.
The whole country is a mess, and Go Start has given us an icon which I cannot read in my interface.
Oh, it has a little teardrop. It's like laughing, and there's tears coming out of the eyes.
Oh, thanks. I do that occasionally. I use that emoji. And Lana says, schlub, a talentless, unattractive, or boorish person. Yes, lots of Democrats fit in that category, especially the ones on Twitter. Dolores says, K. Clark Ryan, I read that it was temporary. Oh, it was actually Dolores Pierce who said that to K. Clark Ryan. I read that it was temporary. I'm not sure what was temporary, but anyway. So GhostStart has another icon there, which I cannot read in my interface, but maybe Shane can, since he's obviously looking at the YouTube chat.
I'm looking at the interface, and it's a monkey
It's a monkey. Oh, okay.
doing a thing like this.
Well, maybe it's see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Yes, it's covering its ears.
Ah, yes, hear no evil. From Chaos Inc., probably. And Lana says, no party preference. Thank you.
Well, no, the monkey is from Ghost. Oh, yeah, you mean Chaos Evil's Ing's Evil?
Huh? I'm sorry, the what?
Did you say that Chaos Ing put the monkey?
Yeah, that might have been in response to Chaos.
Ah, yes.
And Kay says he tried to talk his aides into taking him, but no talkers, so he left him in the State House. Sandy Degg says, shared. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for coming. Carmen says, yeah, I bet it is Yiddish. Lana sounds the lovely, though. It sounds schlubly.
In regard to his dog, that he couldn't get anybody to take his dog, he doesn't want it.
He probably infected his dog with COVID before he left. I guess that wasn't funny, right, folks? Dolores Pierce says, hi, Sandy. And Kay says, hi, Sandy Degg. And Sandy says, hi, Dolores Pierce. And Sandy says, hi, Kay. And Carmen says, Carmen like schmuck. Laugh out loud. And Jeffrey says, Jeffrey Denton is here. And he says, sharing. Carmen says, wow, a progressive activist lawyer. We need all of those. Yeah, that's not a bad candidate. A progressive activist lawyer for animal rights. Yeah, what's not to like? Carmen says, schmuck just rhymes so naturally with Chuck. Match made in heaven, laugh out loud. Yeah, Howie Klein for years has been talking about the little Chucky Schmucky, the guy he went to high school with. And GhostStart says, guess whose face is all over Gavin Newsom's anti-recall mailer? 5 separate images of Trump. Nana says, but Kamala doesn't care about animals, laugh out loud. I like him better. I don't know if she cares about animals, to be fair. And Lana says to GhostStart, Steve, wow. Carmen says, I like him better too, Lana. Carmen says, Steve, Adolf Twitler, that's Carmen's name for the orange monster, says, is busy killing folks in Bama rallies via COVID super spreading. Good point there, Carmen. Carmen says, why didn't Bobo kick the electric company that causes the California fires in the ass? Is he in bed with them? I don't know, but that's a good conjecture, Carmen. And Kay says, pandemic will never be over, in my opinion. GhostStart says, pin tweet Devorah Firestone. Answer question 2, Devorah F. at Kaplowitz for governor. Supports the Green New Deal, Medicare for All, law specialist, ready with solutions for fire problems that Gavin Newsom and Dems seem hesitant to solve. Well, that's my daughter. And Dolores says, prediction is 2022 if it follows trends of past pandemics. Yes. Carmen says, Delta variant, better worry about Lambda and the unnamed variant said to be vaccine resistant. Yeah, I was reading about that yesterday. That is something like B1.2. something. I still don't have the number down, but I've heard about that variant and that there's a lot of modification of the spike proteins on that variant. And it may be capable of escaping the vaccines, but they don't know. Kay says, Dolores Pierce, this is not at all, but this one is not at all the same as others. She's probably talking about the candidacy of Dan Kaplovitz, that it's not at all like the candidacy of the other schlubs who are running.
What time stamp are you at now?
I'm at 9:50. And Lana Dell says, the sky is falling. Force the vote. And Go Start Again gives the pinned tweet. Answer question 2. Kaplovitz for governor. Supports GND, Medicare for All, law specialist, ready with solutions for fire problems that at Gavin Newsom and Dems seem hesitant to solve. And maybe I'll try to get Dan on the show on Saturday, see if he'd be willing to come on.
Which Dan?
Dan Kaplovitz.
Well, he'd be interesting, yeah.
A candidate for governor of California.
That'd be a good interview.
In case it might be a very good interview. Lana says, every time the centrists say how wonderful Pelosi is, I feel ill. Me too. Lana says, Go Start good. Sandy says, unfortunately, with these people not getting vaccinated is going to keep this virus mutating. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to make it harder and harder to stamp it out, especially since they won't just shut down the country for a month. You really need to do that, I think. Garstad says they need to take the car mileage tax out. I don't think a car mileage tax is in the bill. That was against one of Biden's ironclad principles. I don't think it's in the reconciliation bill, and I don't think it's in the infrastructure bill. Kay says, as long as it is active in the world, it will spread here, of course. But if we close down for a month and shut it down here, then we can be very strict about our border crossings. We can quarantine people the way Australia does and, New Zealand does. And we can escape the worst of it. By far, does anybody know how many people New Zealand has lost? If it hasn't changed, and since the last time I looked, 26 people out of 5 million since the beginning of COVID. 5 deaths per million for New Zealand. It's fantastic. And Lana says, we need a t-shirt with Nancy's face, quote, want to see my freezer? Carmen Muna says, why, Lana? Because she's colder than a witch's tit. Oops. Oh, yeah. And Ghostart says, hashtag grim shot, hashtag tossed salad. I think that's because I mentioned the name, of Ryan Grimm, maybe. And Lana says, quote, right on Afghanistan, unquote, did you see Mahdi Hassan going off? It's on the Rational National. 60 seconds and chock full. Thank you, Lana. I will check it out. Lana says, yes, Carmen, and totally FOS. So sick of her. And Carmen says, me too, Lana. Can't stand the sight of her. Kay says, 10 p.m. Still 86 here in northeastern Ohio. So sick of this heat. Shane, you want to say something?
Yes, I don't know if I'm able to share screen here. I created the picture that Lana had said.
Okay, can you share the screen here?
Let's see. Yes, I can.
Go ahead and share it.
So, Lana, you said you wanted a picture like this. Can everybody see this on stream?
I don't think they can see it yet, but I can add it to the stream.
Yes.
And there it is. It's been added to the stream. Okay, I don't know what the letters say. I can't read the letters very well from this interface.
It says, want to see my freezer?
Yeah, want to see my freezer. No, that's great. I'm going to see if I can take us out of the picture and get this even better. There's not much improvement, but want to see my freezer? That's a good one, certainly. Okay, thank you for that, Shane.
No problem. I thought that. Oh no. I'll
And,
send you a copy, Joe.
I'm sorry.
I'll send you a copy. You could send it to Lana.
Oh, thanks. Good. I'll send it to Lana. And Ghostart says Biden versus Pelosi, battle for the last scoop. Who wins? Actually, if you send it to me, I'll tweet it out. And also send it to Lana through a DM.
Okay.
And Carmen says Biden wins, Ghostart, because Pelosi is used to melting. And Ghostart says she's a witch, capital W, capital W, lowercase I, capital T, C, capital H, 3 exclamation points. And Dolores,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I got to make the background blue for the Democrats.
Oh, okay. Make the background blue. K. Clark Ryan says, we will see. It's interesting that scientists and astrologers are looking at history and trends with the same 2022 timeline. The media's job is to read what their corporate masters and sponsors tell them. After the pandemic, I'm going to continue with the mask. I haven't had a cold or caught any viruses, but since I wear the mask. That's very good to hear, and that's a great idea. And, in China and in Taiwan, in some of the countries that were subject to the first SARS virus, there are a lot of people who go around masked all the time when they leave the house. Still, even before COVID, they wanted to be safe, and they did that. Carmen says, and the U.S. just shot down a plane over Syria. I think it was Syria at that. Fucking HRC's no-fly zone to feed the military-industrial complex. Warhawks continued. Evelina says, hey, Evelina, Rumsfeld saw the Twin Tower event as a Pearl Harbor moment and thought he'd go in for the kill in several places at a time. Horrible man. Yes, he was a horrible man who was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. And Dolores Parrish, I think in some ways he was worse than Henry Kissinger, but that's a stretch. I don't know if that's true. And Dolores Pierce says people need to be keeping a strong immune system. Yes, we do. Afghanistan is mineral rich. They have the lithium mines, which is used for batteries and hybrid cars, but maybe not for very long because the liquid metal batteries are coming along now. And we may not be using the lithium for much longer, maybe 2-3 years. I don't know if there's enough time left, for lithium batteries to make it profitable to actually mine the lithium in Afghanistan or anywhere else.
Kyle made a point to this. He said we spent $5 billion. What was it per year we spent in Afghanistan? He had said that we had spent.
We spent billions of dollars in Afghanistan.
Right. He said something. We spend $10 billion a year to get $1 billion in lithium. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense. But America can export it from South America cheaper. I think that's why we left. We are transitioning away from fossil fuel, and it's not worth it to ship it from Afghanistan. That could be. But of course, the Chinese can get it from Afghanistan. It's close to them. But you can be sure if new technology comes out, that the Chinese will be first in line to get that. Ghostart says the Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi. That's funny. Dracula. Lana says, The people who kept saying McCarthy would win are ignorant of how Congress operates. So frustrating. We here on this page were blessed with the real story, but more people need to learn. Yeah, they still need to learn. It's astonishing how many of our live streamers today do not know that Pelosi could have been easily replaced on January 3rd by the CPC if they had had the guts to do it. I mean, perhaps the problem with the progressives in Congress is they can't count. Maybe they can't count the votes. I mean, maybe that's what happened. They had at least 15 people who could have joined the anti-Pelosi movement. Much too much for her to continue. I mean, if you consider the 6 people who were bona fide squad members, the additional 2 who are half squad members, Jayapal and Ro Khanna, that's 10 right there. And then you also figure Jamie Raskin would come in.
Maybe Katie Porter.
Maybe Katie Porter. It wouldn't be too hard to get to 15. If you got to 10 or 11, you could certainly get to 15.
Some may not stand in. For example, Barbara Lee, because she's friends with Pelosi, may not vote with them right away. But if there's enough of them, and they have to go around in circles enough times, even people like Barbara Lee may vote against Pelosi and be like, or might say to Pelosi, you're kind of going to have to step aside.
Yeah. There's something they can do even now. It's known as the vacate the chair motion. They could run a vacate the chair motion against her. And it would be a privileged motion. And the reason why I say that is because the Congressional Progressive Caucus is an official caucus of the Democratic Party. So if the caucus introduces a vacate of the chair motion, it has to get a vote within 3 business days. Has to get a floor vote.
Within 3 business days or 3 days?
I think it's 3 business days, if I recall correctly. So but if it's 3 days, it's even better. Whose phone is that? Is that yours or mine?
Is that mine?
I don't know. Well, it's not mine.
That's Facebook.
You only have one phone.
It's probably you messaging me on Facebook. But sending me...
Oh, no, that was me. I got a call from somebody.
Oh, you did get a call from somebody. Okay.
Yes. Except I'm live now, and they would know if...
Right. Okay. So Gostart said she did the math. Yes, she did the math. But I had the math spread all over Twitter.
What time slot are we up to now? I lost my place because of that.
Timestamp 10:09. Sandy says, if my last name was Dingle, I would change it.
No.
Right. However, John Dingle was one of the people who was in the Congress for the very longest period of time, something like from 1958 through about 2016, which was like 58 years or something like that.
Yeah.
He spent a huge period of time in Congress, and she was proud to marry him back, in 1980, and they were very close. And, of course, when he died, she took his seat in Congress.
Did she run for it? I forget.
Yes. I don't know. She might have been appointed at first, but then, of course, she ran on her own. She has been the congressperson, I think, since 2017. Costart said she did the Monster Mash. I'm not sure what that means. Carmen Mina says it was a 22 house graveyard smash. Kay says, sure glad you are back tonight. I've missed you, Kay says. Oh, we've missed you too, Kay. Lana says, the House will be then Democratic, the graveyard if they keep on doing what they do. Carmen says, Alana, precisely my point. Smashed all to hell was my point. Okay, and Lana says, Kristen Cinema said she does not want Bernie's bill. She wants a lesser one. Can someone please ask her why? Seems like it's the price tag. Okay, but why? It's not the price tag. It's what her donors want.
It's what's in the bill, and her donors don't like it.
Right, but her donors don't want the 3.5 trillion bill, which makes people more powerful. That is why they don't want it. And Kirsten Sinema, of course, does not know any MNT at all.
She probably doesn't really know economics to begin with.
Yeah, she probably knows only some arithmetic. And Ghostart says, but PSA says, but Fauci says, we'll be lucky to get COVID-19 under control by string 22. So what's with using COVID funds for infrastructure? Well, these stupid people thought it was over in June. That's what it's about. They can't see 6 feet in front of them. They have no imaginations. Their only imaginations extend to screwing people. And Dolores Pierce says, me too, Kay. Sandy Degg says, me 3. Kay says, I am the greatest singer I can sing. Lana, I love you, blah, blah, blah. Ivana says, that's a 180-degree turn. Kay says, I love Lana. So Lana says, singing is joyous. Sing is also a place for lunatics. Just saying. Garstart says, the U.S. imposed 4 more rounds of sanctions on Cuba, while Biden is scheduled to meet with Naftali Bennett, the Israeli prime minister, the Israeli nincompoop, Naftali Bennett, this Thursday, ignoring Israel shooting Palestinian protesters with live ammunition. Oh, Biden. Incredible. Evelina says, was this right before the 2020 elections? Because at the time, I remember Mexican Americans praising Trump's treatment in Mexico, saying they were going to vote Republican, something I could not understand at the time. Steve Wolfbrand said, he did it. It was all fake. Do some research. What was that? Who did what? Who did what, Steve? Carmen says, because of pollution. China masks. Sandy says, new math. Sandy says, it was Nancy calling she wants out of the freezer.
Oh.
Carmen says, Joe, will the in-depth title remain? Yes. The in-depth title will remain, and the in-depth examination will remain too. Carmen says, love hearing Bonnie in the background. So comforting. Well, thank you. It's very comforting to me too. Kostat says, Dingleheimer Schmidt. His name is my name, too. Whenever we go out, the people always shout, Dingleheimer Schmidt. Of course they do. What else would they shout? Okay, folks. I've reached the end of the evening. I hope you've all had a pleasant evening here with Shane.
I got one more Nancy Pelosi meme for everybody before we go.
Okay, that's excellent, Shane. Please make your contribution.
Wonderful. I've updated the picture to let me go ahead and window.
Okay.
Where is it?
Okay, before you leave, I have some announcements for you, by the way. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm about to share Shane's screen. Okay, let me take us out of the picture, give you more room to see. And there's Nancy saying, want to see my freezer.
Let me see the new picture, right?
But that reminds me, of the old line. I want to see my etchings.
Can everybody see this? Yeah. Wait, that's the wrong one. Oh, there's so many.
Yes, we can see it.
Here. No, that's the old one. Whatever. I'll send this to you, Joe, and you could put it up for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Thank you. Okay, so anyway, a few more comments have been added in the interim, so I will read them. Okay, Dolores Pierce says, thank you for a great discussion. And Dolores Pierce says it was a great. And Kay says, thank you all for another great discussion. I love you all. We love you, Kay, very much. Carmen says, Cinema's math consists of counting donor dollars and how many knives she has to stab people in the back. And Lotta says, I seriously want to have t-shirts made. We could make some dollars. Okay. Also, Dolores says it was a great show. And Lana says, great having Shane. Thank you all. I think it was great having Shane, too. He adds a lot to the show. Jenny says, thank you, Shane, Joe, and Bonnie. Have a great night. And now my announcements, folks. Tomorrow night, it will be Lisa Theobald, who will be my guest on the show. Her Twitter handle is 50 lines only. She is deeply embedded in the Red Berets movement, and I'll be talking to her about that movement, okay, Medicare for All, and MMT, all in the same show. She'll be asking me MMT questions, okay, which I'll be answering on that show. On Thursday, it will be Laura Fielding, who is the executive director of the Red Berets, who will be coming on the show. And she and I will be talking about the essentials of a bottom-up type of movement, which is what the Red Berets are. They are bottom up, direct but democracy. Okay, also multi-pronged, fight on all fronts. Hashtag FOAF or FOAF. So Dolores says good night all, and Lana says, oh cool, but Lisa's good people. She is, and Laura is good people too. Okay, I'm having them on separate nights because they're always seen together, and they do very well together. But I have a feeling they're going to do very well alone as well and talk about slightly different things and give us a little more depth concerning our picture of the movement. And that movement is now going to get even more important because not only is there activism in Washington for a single payer program, but as we've just said, there is activism in New York as well, and we know there's activism in California too, and we might be having a gubernatorial change that could possibly facilitate that. Carmen Yunus says, Shane's t-shirts would sell and raise funds for progressives.
Not a bad idea.
It is not a bad idea. It is a very good idea. And Lana says, Laura and Lisa separately. Interesting. Lana says, FOAF. I like it. Well, we've been putting it all over Twitter for the last week, Lana. I know you've taken a break from Twitter, but maybe it's time for you to come back because it's all over there. Lana says, good night. And Stephen Wolfbrand asks, Biden up? And Stephen Wolfbrand says, no, bottom up, not Biden up, bottom up. Up what? I don't think I'm going to answer that question. It's, as Bernie was fond of saying, if you want change, it's always from the bottom on up and not from the top on down. And that's what this is about, except we get rid of the on because it's not necessary. It's bottom up versus top down. So that's what we're saying. And the Red Berets movement is a bottom up, a direct democracy, fighting on all fronts movement. And it's also multi-pronged in that the various prongs of us, there are various prongs of our strategy. It's not just one thing. And Carmen says, to bite him up, laugh out loud, new T-shirt. Yeah, bite him up. We got ideas for at least 2 T-shirts. And Ghostart says, why did Savage Joy drop out of hashtag M4M for all? I don't know. She's still part of the movement. She's going to be very active in the movement. She's involved in submitting the petition to the UN. She was leaving hashtag M4M for all as of tonight. I don't know why she's leaving or what she's doing. However, I do know that there is a steering committee for the M4M for all movement, which appeared after the marches and which is comprised of people that nobody knows. There is no list of people who is part of the steering committee. Since the steering committee is the governing body, I guess, of M4M for all, okay, at this point, and you don't know who the members of the steering committee are, then, well, you don't know who you're giving money to, right?
That's true.
Steve Wilbrand says, okay. Yeah, Steve said okay. So anyway, so that's the story. That's the story on the steering committee out of this, as of this date. This steering committee may be changing. It may be becoming transparent. Okay, I don't want to say it's not going to become transparent, but at this time, this steering committee is not at all transparent. Steve says we are exhausted. Who's we, Steve? We are not exhausted. We have just begun to fight. And we need you, Steve. We need you to keep fighting. That's why you should be aligning with us. Because we're fighters. Just like the Convo couch. Steve, compared to us, Steve is a youngster. And Carmen Muniz says, bottom up sounds like a Cardi B song. No, Carmen, it sounds like democracy, real democracy. Bottom up is real democracy.
That's not me.
Huh?
That's not me.
It's not me, us is bottom up. Not us, not me. Not me, us.
Not us, me. Wouldn't sell that well.
So Sandy says, yeah, Steve, get moving, get moving. Cardi B song, get moving. Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. It was very enjoyable tonight. It was much fun. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow and Thursday, too. And let's see if I can get Dan Kapilovitz to come on Saturday.
Sure.
I mean, maybe we can start a little boomlet for him. I hope we can. Oh, Shane is leaving another.
Where'd it go?
I don't know. You just had it, but it's left. Ghost God says direct democracy, hashtag direct democracy, hashtag the blockchain. I've been thinking about democracy and bottom up, okay, in the blockchain now for about maybe 9 years. Maybe 9 years. Kay says, thank you all. And Shane has left us with another want to see my freezer graphic. That would be perfect for a t-shirt, Shane.
Absolutely. Let's get these made.
Yeah, that would be easy for a t-shirt. Easy for some swag. All we need for that is the KRTD Media logo somewhere on the t-shirt.
Yes, and we'll sell some new t-shirts.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, Carmen says t-shirts and masks for sale, Shane. Yeah, we could have them on masks too, Shane.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Lana says, I know where to get them made.
For the mask, you know what I'd like to have? Gavin Newsom. I need to have my meal.
Gavin Newsom, yeah, I need to have my meal. That would be great for masks.
And we need to have a barbershop cape that has Nancy Pelosi. I need to get my hair cut.
And Sandy Degg says she needs some ice hanging off her nose. Boy, wouldn't that be a great t-shirt? That would be a bestseller. That would be a bestseller.
I'm gonna get the Gavin Newsom one made and that and all this stuff. It'll be great.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt for Gavin that says Bobo on it.
Yes. How about Bobo needs to have his meal?
Bobo needs to have his meal at the French Laundry.
Is there even a picture of that? I gotta find that picture if there is.
I think there may be a picture of him at the French Laundry. But wasn't the French? No, it wasn't that. Because that was Buttigieg's place where he was doing a fundraiser at this place with this immense chandelier that was in a cave somewhere, and that involved wine tasting. Oh, Buttigieg is such a man. Is he terrible?
That was a fun debate. You had Sanders and Warren yelling at him about that.
Carmen says, "Yay, Lana! Yay, Lana!"
She knows where to get them made. Well, tell Joe, and he'll tell me.
Okay, send me a DM, Lana. I'll forward it to Shane. Okay, folks. Good night. Sleep tight. I'll see you tomorrow night.